called a liar and kicked out of the lobby because I do not have the ability to change my name. So I'm currently using my ladder name, which is Egwene from Wheel of Time. And I don't know, that might cause issues down the road, but we'll get there when we get there. I got a little bit of a new setup, slash I'm missing something. I'm using my new camera that I bought for my documentary, filmmaking, interview, whatever. And I do not have my light set up. I actually lost my lights stand when I was in Korea. But we'll talk more about that later on. I'm going to be extremely rusty. I'm just going to warn you all right now. Oh, really? That's so fast. Okay. So, I mean, I'm legitimately so rusty that I feel like I'm not even familiar with what I'm looking at here. It's like, what is Protoss? What is, how do... Anyways, bottom left it is Astrea, top right it is Harstem, and Harstem is very much fast expanding. This is very cheeky. I don't think this has to do with the patch, although it could. You know, I really don't know. Well, okay, so, sorry. What I should say is that it's probably because of the patch, but it's not like it's illegal to do in PvP. It's very uncommon, for sure. But you can actually, you know, sometimes we would see Nexus first. Definitely a gamble, something that you might see done against someone known for one get expand, perhaps. But anyways, time to try and maybe bring that further into the meta with the patch, which I'll try and update, you know, what is happening patch-wise and what is, like, normal stuff as we go on. But to be honest, I just checked out the patch, said my thoughts, talked a little bit about it with people in Korea, and then have not watched anything except Reddit having a meltdown on the patch. So, yeah. I don't actually remember off the top of my head a lot was changed. So we're going to be in this together, I guess. So Astrea is going to go 1 git expand. Except things have gotten a little awkward. I mean, Harstem, you pylon block, so an expansion's not going to happen. Then, wait a minute. Okay, I got confused. Then blocks in Harstem's probe, which I guess could be recalled, but not going to happen here. So the Robo is scouted. It's obviously coming on, but it's only 1 gateway with the Robo, so there's clearly an intent to expand. Problem is that Astrea has zero idea that he went up against a Nexus first. I'm realizing now that my camera is like in slow FPS, but I'll have to fix that later. Yeah, and that, you know, that basically when you go Nexus first, it is so insanely greedy that the payoff, you know, it happens fairly quickly, right? So okay, well, all right, there's the patch in action, actually. So you got the energy recharge, which is replaced the shield body overcharge, and that is used on the sentry to get basically consistent hallucinations. You do give up some chrono energy, though, so it's not, you know, totally free, but yeah, that's been a significant change. And it's going to make you a lot safer in the early game, because not only hallucinations get you scouting, which gets you information, which makes you safe. Also, force fields should not be forgotten, just because they aren't the highlight like they were in 2011. Force fields are still pretty good. Guardian Shield as well, actually. But anyway, what the hell was I talking about? The Nexus first, right? That's already been paid off. That's already, the investment is already paid off. So much so as well. Like a Nexus first versus some type of 3-gate Robo cheese, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. It's going to take a while, I think, for you to actually pay off that Nexus first. But against someone who was going to go for a slower expand, well, hell yeah, it's already paid off. Like, yeah, of course, you just got there faster. But Astrea is going to try and make up for the slower expansion, as he did get his own hallucination out on the other side of the map and saw just how saturated that Nexus was and was like, oh shit. He's going to get his own 3rd Nexus much faster than Harstem, and that will kind of make up for things, I guess. You know, but I don't know how fast it'll make up for it. I don't actually have zero idea. This is a very wonky PvP. We basically accelerated the expansions of PvP so far, which I'm not actually all that surprised by. Oh yeah, there's a... So anyways, I wasn't that surprised by it, but I am a little, just taken aback. I guess just so fast.
Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
Mana, good guy, Mana. So yeah, I guess he's finally facing skillless, but say Levy, you know, you just gotta take your chances and get into games when you can find them, I guess. Iskar, thank you very much for the 48 months. Welcome back, everyone. Annoying that Twitch seems to auto-unfollow you. Well, it is a little annoying. I know there was like, a couple problems with Twitch over the years, but to be fair, I also haven't streamed in the last, like, 2.5 weeks, so I don't know if there's some... I don't think it's on purpose, but still, there's some way of, like, unfollowing. Anyways, yeah, it's, I'm back. I'm streaming, and I'm trying to get caught up, but it is extremely difficult to get caught up when you're actually talking about a fairly fast-paced game here. I mean, you know, we're not talking about huge battles deciding the fate of the game so far, which you'd obviously want to make sure you're talking about, but we are talking about all the patch changes on top of now a much speedier PvP, and I'm trying to explain why it's so fast, but it's just, there's not enough time. There's not enough time. We're 6 minutes in, and both players have a completely saturated third nexus. Holy shit, this is so insanely fast. This is, no way, no cap. No, this is actually insane. This almost reminds me of the first time that I played Legacy of the Void. If any of you were around back in 2015, particularly if you went to that BlizzCon where you were allowed to try it out, is the big thing. But it felt so fast. It felt insanely fast. It felt like a completely different game compared to Heart of the Swarm. I remember this very distinctly. And this is the same type of... Oh my god, that's one hell of an Artosis pylon. Good lord! No blink! Which Astrea need to get past those force fields, and +1 is also going to be delayed. Thankfully, Immortal plus shield battery plus a warp prism is what I meant to say. Plus that shield battery, yes, helping out. Of course, no overcharge though, so those Immortals not going to live up to their name totally and entirely, but still pretty effective. Force field on the ramp from Harstem is going to buy a little bit more time, but eventually he's going to get out of here. I mean, he did have the blink, he did have kind of the right to try and outmaneuver his opponents, but really nice thinking there from Astrea. Fortunate to have that Warp Prism able to micro those Immortals in such a fashion on this map, which, by the way, is called Amygdala. So thanks, map makers, for consistently choosing, like, fancy names for no good reason, but fine. That's whatever. We're cool map makers. Anywho, so that actually worked out pretty freaking well for Astrea. Blink is now done. Charge is done for Harstem. But, I don't know, his army supply a little bit sketch right now, although the +1's also done for Harstem. So right now, Astrea just has a bigger army, 2 Immortals, and that Warp Prism to help juggle the Immortals. Harstem has his own Warp Prism doing a double blink action situation here. He did also have a Temple Archives finish, but clearly not enough time to get an Archon. Not that I'm sure an Archon's really what you would want here anyway. Everything here from Astrea, projectiles, obviously, just using the power of the force fields. This is absurd. This is actually absurd. Again, not enough time to really talk about it, but I have to pause and just say this is so absurd. I think maybe the goal there was to jump on top of the Warp Prism. Didn't work out, though. So Harstem, unfortunately, thought he was going in for a really good maneuver. Actually, that ended up really backfiring. And okay. I am glad we're seeing the patch in action. First of all. Second of all, Astrea up 1-0, bottom left, Harstem down 1, top right. Second of all, it is further confirming my fears, which is that the patch is not very good. I haven't made a video on it yet. I don't know if I will. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, everyone's said their piece, and most people generally agree that they don't like the looks of the patch. But anyways, I was thinking different things as to, you know, why I was uncertain about the patch, but whatever. Watching this PvP unfold, I can see what now is going to happen, because I think this actually is exactly what's going to happen in the PvPs we're going to see. And we're going to see a lot of them because we know that most of these tournaments are stacked with Protoss. So I think we'll get like more and more confirmation as it goes on. Now, Nexus first, Nexus first, I don't know about that. But faster expansions and faster economy, like that does seem to make some sense here. So initially, that 60-second cooldown on the energy recharge seemed to be enough to not worry about it, supercharging the economy. But it does seem like, even though it's a 60-second cooldown, it's supercharged their economies quite a bit. And we really actually don't want that much faster of an RTS I know some people will still complain about the lulls in StarCraft, even though it's one of the faster RTS out there, actually, already, as is. Even when it was Heart of the Swarm, doubly so with Legacy of the Void, and now triply so with this Chrono, I guess. We really don't want it to be any faster. I think that's actually, like, maybe someone out there's like, no, I want to be, you know, blazing fast. And I'm like, I'm going to go with the old, you know, saying. I don't think you actually know what you want. But calm, building up your sandcastle, being able to, like, think things through before having to actually do a bunch of shit is actually one of the more fun parts of RTS. Like, it's undervalued when we start talking about other stuff. You know, it just... I really feel like there's... there could be a problem if it's going to be as fast as that PvP was. Because what it's doing is that it's completely taking away the early and a lot of the mid-game and kind of just ushering us into the late game very quickly. And that actually doesn't make very good games. They don't make them very fun. You know, ideally, the best type of game in the world could be, an example could be like a 2-Rax cheese into a counter Baneling bust, into a siege tank push, into a Ling run by, countering the attempted third, into, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it's action, 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 but there's still kind of more definitive spaces in the early, mid, and late game. And it's still not blazing fast, even though that's a lot of action I just explained. It's not actually super fast, but it's one of those, that's like the ideal, like, this has been fun from start to finish situations. And the more that you try and make it so that people are, like, completely safe in the early game, the more that you're going to have this early and mid-game kind of disappear and just going to go into late game, which will get repetitive very, very quickly. But anyways, aside from the game theory, because we actually have a little bit more of a normal PvP going on, but still not, I would say, completely normal. It is the proxy Stargate, so far not doing anything. The Oracle has been changed. And I'm going to have to look up exactly what that change was, because I certainly don't remember. Protoss changes. Disruptor, Immortal, Tempest, Colossus, Shield Battery. Wait, wasn't the Oracle changed? I thought the Oracle was changed. I could have sworn it was. Okay, I'm going to have to look up that later. Anyways, Proxy Oracle seems like a classic build nonetheless. And then we got 2 Oracles out. One being chased by Hallucination, but of course not actually going to die. So far, the Oracle Proxy hasn't really worked out too well. And Astrea did have that nexus of his own, building probes and saturated in building energy as well for a while longer than Harstem. Finally, the Oracles, I guess, something got 2 probes. And that'll put them fairly close on the worker count, but nonetheless. This is more of a normal-looking PvP. And honestly, before the patch, we also had, once that Nexus and the Natural was secured, the third was almost a given. Couple of 2-base attacks, more emphasis on the gateways than the third Nexus, Chrono probes, blah, 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 sure. But most of the time, 2-base saturation, gonna get to a third base, so this is actually way more similar to an old PvP. Oracle not going to work out, Stargate going to be killed, and Harstem finds himself actually now ahead by a probe. Not too bad, I guess. No sentries of his own. The Oracles need to take care of that harassment and scouting. But they don't have those force fields, which I imagine Harstem will want some of. And I guess you could use the energy recharge on the Oracles. Of course, they have to come back first. But that could be a decent amount of stasis traps, which I think is what Harstem is doing. He might have already done it, and I just didn't notice it. I think that's going to be a more difficult thing for us casters to do, is notice that some things have been energy recharged. But, oh well, okay. We'll have to get used to it. But yeah, we got 3 stasis traps already, and you could intend to make more. I don't know. Hallucinations coming over and over and over and over again with not no repercussions, but small repercussions. Excuse me, is going to ensure that Astrea is safe. And taking that third Nexus, again, a little bit faster than Harstem's. Finally getting another economic lead as well. And it seems like we're going to be in a little bit of a stalemate. Both players getting a Forge, third Nexus. Blink is done for both of them. And then now we're just kind of chilling around a little bit. Immortal counts higher for Astrea as it was last game. See if it works out for him again. Yeah, I don't actually have a command for the new patch, but here's the link to it. we can make that a command as well. Okay. All right. And now we got our little passive PvP. I wonder how different mid to late game PvP is going to look with the Disruptor change. Now, the Disruptor had not... It's not been the mainstay of Protoss and PvP for a very long time. Even Desperation Disruptors, when you're pretty far behind but still on 3 base, actually make a pretty rare appearance. At least I had probes so we can send them all over the place. But I still wonder if that is now not an option at all, which is always one of the more fun options, in my opinion, was to see someone trying to hang on with Disruptors, but nonetheless. And then what else would change in mid to late game PvP? Shield Body Overcharge, you know, it would be less effective as the game went on, more chances to snipe it, just such overpowering DPS, it wouldn't really contribute, I suppose, but that's going to change the mid game, certainly not having the overcharge. Late game might be a bit of a difference. 5 probes go down to Astrea's little harassment squad here, but as both players grabbing a 4th Nexus... Well, I guess actually... That's 5 probes, plus Harstem just stopped making probes. I think that's what happened, at least for a little bit. So Astrea has actually taken an 11 probe lead. That is significant. Even though they're both taking the 4th Nexus. Once again, Astrea's is even faster than a natural in the 3rd was in this game. And he's going to saturate away faster as well. So I am liking Astrea's position a lot more. Colossus haven't made an impact in this matchup in a while. Tempests? I guess? Tempest might actually influence late game PvP, and Mothership will, but again, like, is it the biggest of problems? Is it the biggest of deals? I don't know. The early game, the early to mid game of PvP, I think is going to look different with these changes, but mid to late game, maybe not so much. Robotics Bay is on the way for Astrea, and I do wonder if that actually is still for Disruptors. Colossus would not make a lot of sense, I would say. Right? Yeah, no, they wouldn't. So while Disruptors don't one-shot a lot of units anymore, they still do a lot of damage in an AoE. So maybe that is still the intent here from Astrea, who has taken a noticeable blow to the army supply. He's grabbing a 5th Nexus, all these upgrades, all of these buildings as well. While Harstem, you know, he did make some more probes, but actually was, I think, maybe intently trying to cut the probe production a little bit in exchange for what is now a 22 army supply lead. That's not too shabby. Stasis Trap's coming down to help out here. We do have Astrea trying to engage, but I don't know if that was really his opportunity to. Hallucinated Archons are not being scouted. Okay, well, now they are, 100%. And, you know, obviously once they're actually scouted, once the AI sees that they're Archons, it won't focus fire them anymore. What you really would need anyway is, like, the fake Archon is kind of cute, so maybe that would have caused Harstem some hesitation to actually move in, but they, you know, you actually need real Archons at this point. The Zealot numbers are going to get overwhelming, and Astrea's army, it just takes a long time to kill those Zealots. Certainly not impossible to kill them, but it's going to take a while, so the more that you have to try and kill those Zealots, the more you have to blink backwards, the more that this Nexus gets into trouble. Disruptors could be the problem solver here, and we do have 2 being produced at a time. One's already out, 3rd Nexus now the target of Harstem. 3 shield batteries, though. Even without an overcharge, it's pretty helpful. Zealots right now also not really having that much of an impact. They are funneling in face first. One Disruptor is going to get a pretty good shot. Still one-shotting those Stalkers. And that was a lot to give up there. Harstem maybe getting a little overeager. He actually pushed into a position which I could see he thinks is better. But ultimately, this has not it's not improved in the last 30 seconds. The first phase of this battle was the most intimidating. And now Harstem has kind of lost the plot here. 4 Archons, 5 Archons of Harstem joining in on the action. Seems good. Certainly take care of Astrea's Zealots, but they will be vulnerable to the Disruptors. They can't really avoid them, and they can be targeted by the Stalker count as well. This is not an ideal situation for Harstem. You know, if all of his army was actually getting attacks in, It's a very fearsome army, but the problem is that a lot of the times the Immortals aren't actually shooting the Stalkers. The Archons can't get in there with little stubby arms, and we got Astrea kind of being able to out-micro, but he actually jumps into the fight, targets down almost all 3 Immortals instantly. Disruptors being shot out here do manage to capture a lot of those Archons, and that is going to be a pushback. Not for free, though. I don't know. Maybe that was the time to pull the trigger. Maybe he could have just waited for Harstem to leave. I don't know. Maybe thought that was going to be a little more convincing of a fight, but pushing into that army did cause a lot of losses on Astrea's side as well, but losses that he can replace. He is on 5 bases, 70 workers. He was on that economy longer than his opponent, even though Harstem has now caught up, and so can replace it, and he kept those really expensive slow-building disruptors alive. So, yeah, I don't know if it's better for him, but ended up working out for him. Both of them on +2, working on +3. Astrea did sneak in that second forward, but it looks like Harstem to try and go into those Stargates. We may actually see the Tempest change in action. And a little marine maneuver over to the top left. Seems like a couple of probes will go down for it. Harstem extending his economic lead ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. But he's going to have a big weakness while he tries to transition over into Stargates. Once he starts to try and add in those slow building, expensive units that might not actually be that impactful if there's only 1 or 2 of them, Astrea will probably be maxing out on gateway armies and immortals and whatever else, basically faster units that can actually take advantage of a timing like that. So Harstem has to be really careful not to basically show that weakness, to actually keep the pressure up and force Astrea to keep responding in different locations, which so far so good. Astrea forced to recall, but now going for a little bit of a trap here. He's got the opportunity. Harstem will have blink in just 1 second. He's got it, actually. So he will be able to escape. He wants to make sure that his second army is actually doing something before, I guess, he fully escapes from this, which is a pretty good idea. Again, he's going to have a tough time. If he keeps on bleeding out, first of all, he's going to need time to replace the army as is. But then if he does choose to use those Stargates, he's going to have a lot locked in production. So this is a very vulnerable moment. Harstem sending all of his zealots, a couple of immortals down to that 3rd base, though. That 3rd base is definitely a gone. Remember, recall on cooldown for Astrea. And Astrea's army isn't actually as obnoxious to deal with. I think that's the right word, basically. All of these zealots for Harstem, unless they just get funneled into the Archons, are going to get every nook and cranny, so it's a little more intimidating, but it looks like with the Archons responding, Astrea is going to force Harstem to recall back home. Now it's time for Astrea to skedaddle, and at the end of the day, after pseudo-base trades, Astrea was the only one to lose a Nexus, though. Harstem is coming out on top in the army supply, although only a little bit, not for very long. Never mind, JK, just to take it back. Of course, Phoenix. Kind of forgot about that option. Phoenix coming out to take care of the disruptors. All right, yeah. That does make sense. He is not going for a fleet beacon, just adding on pure Stargate. And his idea is to respond to the disruptors, maybe pick up some of the immortals as well. Things are getting a little topsy-turvy, though, as none of these engagements are really ideal for either player. But Astrea is finally digging into that economy in a way that I don't think his base trade really worked out before. He's also gotten a new base up and running rather than replacing his 3rd, which is probably a good idea. And actually kills the Nexus finally. Harstem was trying to get big old surround going on with the Zealots on the backside, but Astrea's own Zealots helping to buy some time there. At the very least, Disruptors did shoot out, but a pretty wide concave. Didn't get the best possible shots, and Harstem is going to blink forward, trying to chase this army down, but that might have been a mistake right there. This army of Astrea is still pretty intimidating. It's higher in supply as well. Here come the Disruptors back in for round number 2, although they're not being particularly effective against those Zealots, and actually getting shot down right there. Harstem's blink forward does cost him a couple of Stalkers, but Astrea holds on to that just about 30 supply lead. Woof! Harstem on the ropes. He is on his last life. He just lost one of his major mining bases. He's lost quite a few probes as well. He's going to be forced to chrono, which he has plenty of energy to do so. So he can chrono and then keep on chronoing, I guess. I mean, just like, I don't see any use of the energy recharge, right? Sentries aren't really useful in this type of game. And, well, nothing else really has energy, does it? Colossus is on the way. See, I actually like this now. I think when both armies were getting to potentially both being maxed out and just kind of like headbutting each other, then I think positioning's really strong there, and Colossus can often look a little ineffective against the full might of another 200 Protoss army, unless there's like 5 of them, of course. But then there's some issues doing with that. We don't see that high Colossus count anymore. I haven't seen this at Heart of the Swarm. But when things get a little calmer, a little more reduced, and you've kind of seen that your opponent's strategy relies heavily on those Zealots, then I think actually Colossus make a lot of sense. Now again, one Colossus still needs to have, needs to be in the right position. Can't get surrounded, wants to find those Zealots all in a choke. But if he takes up to 3 Colossus, which has become the magic number of Legacy of the Void, then that plus a decent attack opportunity, yeah, I could see the Colossus being really relevant. Plus, they don't get picked up by Phoenix. They do get shot up by Phoenix, but they're going to be with the army, so the Phoenix have to decide whether it's worth it to try and sack themselves onto a Colossus underneath all the Archon fire in a way that they didn't really have to with Disruptors, right? Because the main thing for Disruptors, you pick them up, you drop them immediately, you've canceled the Disruptor shot, so you can kind of get in and get out easily. For the Colossus, I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to stand up to Phoenix very, very, very much. But again, drawing them into the army, forcing those Phoenix to go all over the Archons and commit to a Colossus kill, that'll be a tough decision there, I think, for Harstem. Interesting to see how it goes. He will be going up to 7 Phoenix. No +1 on them, though, which we all know is very effective. If he got +1 on them, I think those Colossus would fall fairly fast. And now I wonder how the dynamic is going to look. Both players trying to rebuild their economy, but Astrea was faster to his. Even now we're building his 3rd base. We still had a decent amount of minerals to be mined from. He's gotten much better upgrades as well. Shield finished quite some time ago for Astrea. Armor as well. Harstem only just now trying to catch up on that, but as Astrea finishes 2-2 on those upgrades, it's not looking so hot for the captain here, as he's also forced to take an engagement, which I'm not really sure he wanted to. Phoenix are to go after the Colossus, but not even all of them are shooting. There was a little hesitancy, I think, right there, because there were so many Archons. Now, the Immortal count from Harstem is surprisingly high. I didn't really pick up on that, but that is interesting. The Immortal's not going to be very effective against these Zealots, but the Zealot numbers wasn't really high. So the Archons are just having trouble again with their stubby arms fighting against the Immortal. The Immortals take out the Archons, the Phoenix take out the Colossus. You might have something perfect right there, but it's just not enough. And Harstem is going to have to tap out. It just got worse and worse as the engagement went on. And Astrea will win 2-0, showing some mastery over the new PvP, I guess.